I'm Clever Ghoul, but you can call me Nikki. Welcome back to the channel! Recently I was stocking up on Halloween supplies at the Dollar Tree, and as I was wandering through, looking at all these mini skulls, I also saw this cylindrical vase, and something just came over me and I knew that I had to make this stacked skull, Catacomb inspired sort of vase. Basically, I thought, how can I combine these two items together and make them a creepy, fun Halloween decoration? So that's what we're doing this week. Now this is a really easy craft. The thing that takes the longest is drying time, both for glue and paint, but really it isn't too difficult. So with that being said, let's get into it. For materials, you'll need the following. 5 packs of these mini skulls. There's 8 to a pack, and you're gonna need about 36, which means that you will have extra, but in case you mess up any, it is good to have the extras on hand. 1 cylindrical glass vase. This one is also, again, from Dollar Tree, and it is 7.3 inches tall with a 3.4 inch diameter, a Sharpie, X-Acto knife, medium grit sandpaper, B7000, hot glue, spray paint primer. I used Krylon all-in-one metallic gold, Krylon chalky finish in colonial ivory, and a variety of acrylic paints. I used black, honey brown, chocolate brown, and deep gray. First, figure out where you want to cut your skulls in half and then mark that along the skull with a Sharpie. Then, very carefully pull out your X-Acto knife and cut into the skull and all the way around, separating the front and the back pieces. I did 2 bags at first so I could see how many I would need, both going around the diameter and going vertically. So I laid them out and taped them around the top diameter of the vase, and I realized I needed 9 to go all the way around. Then I placed some going down vertically, and I realized I would need 4 in total. So in total, I would need 36 skulls. Once I had that number, I counted out the remaining number of skulls that I needed, and then again marked where I wanted to cut them, and then cut them with the X-Acto knife. Next, I pulled out some sandpaper and sanded the edges of the skulls that I had just cut, smoothing out any jagged edges and adding a little texture so that the glue had something to hold on to. To start the gluing process, I decided that I first wanted to go around the top diameter of the vase. This way it would be easier to align vertically the remaining skulls once I had this top ring all set. I would add B7000 glue around the edge of the skull, put it down at the top of the vase, and then carefully take some masking tape and hold it down into position so that it could dry. I would let that sit for 3 to 5 minutes until it felt secure before moving on to the skull next to it. And then I would repeat the process over again until I had a ring going around the entire diameter. Once those were all down and secure, I decided it was time to add in the vertical lines of skulls. I would do 1 column at a time, holding them down and adding tape where needed in order so that they could dry in position without moving around. I would let those sit for a minimum of 5 minutes. Sometimes I let them sit for 10 minutes, depending on if they were kind of moving around a lot. Then I would move on to the next column until all of the skulls went all the way around the vase, and I let it sit overnight to cure completely. The next day, I moved on to filling the gaps and add in a rough, mortar-y, muddy texture behind the skulls. Looking back, I probably should have done this with plaster, just added that in, smoothed it down, and wrapped it all the way around so it had an even texture. But I've had a really busy week and haven't slept much, and for some reason decided that hot glue was the way to go. So I went in and added a thick layer of hot glue around and behind the skulls, filling in any and all gaps. Once the hot glue had set, I removed any cobwebs that I could see, and then I took it outside to spray with primer. I chose metallic gold because it was what I had on hand that was closest to like a brown or a tan sort of dirt color, and I also didn't mind some of the shimmer coming through. After letting that dry, I added in a few coats of Krylon chalky finish in colonial ivory. This added in some more matte texture and is a good base for the skulls. Once that dried, I brought it in, and as you can see here, there were a ton of hot glue strings and bumps and lumps that I didn't catch before taking this out to spray. This is why I was saying plaster might be a better option for this, but you know what? Crafting mistakes happen, and we're gonna make the most of it, so just trust the process with me, okay? It's now time to add in the acrylic paint. I started by making a wash of chocolate brown paint, adding it in all over the vase, both on the skulls and the hot glue background. And I would use a slightly damp paper towel to wipe off any area that was too saturated. I applied a second layer once that first layer had dried, and then I did a third layer just on that hot glue background. Then I made a wash with honey brown paint and added that to all of the skulls lightly, again dabbing any excess with a paper towel. This was just to add in a little bit of yellowing that you would see naturally in some old bones. Once that dried, I realized I wanted to deepen the facial features a little bit more, so I mixed brown and deep gray paint together, again making a wash, going all over the skulls, focusing on the eyes, nose, teeth, and any jaw pockets or indentations in the skulls. Now it's time to fully hide that bumpy, stringy hot glue mess. I did this slowly in layers to really add in depth and shadow. So first I mixed some black paint with chocolate brown paint, making a wash going through that background layer. Once that was dry, I went back in adding more black into the same wash and going all over everywhere again. Then I did 2 final washes of just black paint, this time focusing on any remaining textures that stuck out and any crevices, really trying to hide them and deepen those areas so it looked more like these were buried underground. Once that was all done, I left it to dry, and well, that means it's time for the reveal. Here it is! Ta-da! I'm gonna admit, when I first thought of this project, I originally thought maybe I would cover the entire thing in gold spray paint and call it a day. But as I was going through this process, I all of a sudden just had this idea of the catacombs and old rotted bones, and I don't know, I just thought it would be more interesting to do that as a vase instead. Maybe it's because I saw Hosier in concert this week, but I just can't stop thinking about bodies in graves that can't be held down. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, so I'm really glad I changed my mind and went from doing just a basic flat covering of paint to really going in and making this a creepy vase full of rotted skulls. I think one of the reasons this is so successful is the acrylic wash of everything. I often forget how impactful just layering on thin layers of paint can really be, but this should show you here how much you can build up and customize a look that you want. This is one of those projects where I kept second guessing myself a lot of the way through, but in the end, it turned out so good, and I'm just so proud of that. You've probably had that same experience where you're creating something and it's just not going how you want it to. You can still make things work and you can still be happy with the result if you just give it a little patience and you trust the process. Anyway, I'm really pleased with how this came out. It's really creepy and gross and rotted, and I just love that. It's basically my favorite thing. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!